Welcome, welcome everyone. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Join us in the Zoom room. We're so glad to
Good
have you
morning.
all here.
Good morning.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome, welcome as folks are gathering into the Zoom room. To say a quick introduction, we'll do a little longer introduction in a minute, but I'm Mark, and that's Scott, and Darcy is here doing tech with us behind the scenes.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Darcy.
Welcome from Matt's Aha! 6 ways to level up your short comedy. We're very excited to be bringing this workshop for you today. We have some takeaways that we find very valuable, and we hope that you're going to find very valuable as well. And we're excited to present them to you. And we hope that you leave this session today with some new tips, some new tools that you feel like are going to enhance your comedy writing starting right now. But Scott and I are going to introduce each other. First of all, let me tell you about Scott Dikkers. Scott and I are co-teaching this workshop today. Scott is a #1 New York Times best-selling author of How to Write Funny and over 3 dozen other books. He's a comedy educator and coach who's helped people to go on to win multiple Emmys, Grammys, and even an Oscar. He is founding editor of The Onion, headed up their editorial team for most of its first quarter century. Incredible. Scott gives daily comedy writing advice and inspiration on his Substack. No dickering around for all writers, performers, and raconteurs. scottdickers.substack.com is one of the ways you can find out more about that. And now, Scott, I'll tell you about me.
Mark, I'm so excited to be here with you. It's so great that we're from two different like comedy schools that we started, and we haven't like worked together before, so we don't know what each other is going to say about how to write better sketches. So this is like, getting Harvard and Yale together to learn to learn law. And I'm excited to be with you because you are an award-winning director and head writer at the Second City for a long time. You directed and taught writers who went on to great success writing for all the big sketch shows like SNL, Key and Peele, Black Lady Sketch Show, even Ted Lasso and The Simpsons. You have students who built millions of followers on social media. You wrote multiple shows at the Kennedy Center and directed them. You are a writer for Detroiters, starring Tim Robinson, Sam Richardson. You've taught comedy internationally as a cultural ambassador for the U.S. Embassy, which is amazing. And you founded the Sketch School. I'm super excited to hear what you have to say about what makes a funny sketch.
Yeah, same. And as Scott mentioned, we both have our approaches, our tips, our tools. We're going to give some feedback on some actual pieces in a little bit. And we've deliberately not shared too much with each other so
Yeah.
that we could kind of, it'll be fresh for us as it's fresh for you. And we're going to be reacting to each other's stuff and notes and tips in real time. But today's workshop is going to take place in 3 sections. The first section is going to be those 6 ways to level up your comedy. I'm going to present 3 tools and tips. Scott's going to present 3 tools and tips, some valuable takeaways for you that you could start using today. You'll be able to use this stuff immediately. Then in section 2, as we mentioned, we're going to do a little bit of case studies. We're going to show a couple scripts. We're going to read them, and Scott and I are going to give some of our feedback on them. And then in section 3, Q&A. We're going to do some Q&A with you. So if you've got questions, we'll be opening up the Q&A box for you to be able to drop those in, and we'll get to as many as we can. Section 1, 6 ways to level up your comedy. I'm going to start with my 3 ways to level up. And the first one, the first tip, the first tool I want to offer up to you is called shots on goal. This is a term from sports that we have borrowed in the comedy writing world and in the sketch comedy world. Look, in sports, here's how this term shots on goal is used, right? In ice hockey and hockey and soccer, we know that in these sports, the athletes playing these games are taking shots at the goal constantly. They're taking as many as they can throughout the game. Only a small amount of these shots actually score a goal. A soccer game can end 3-1. A hockey game could end 1-0. That doesn't mean that was the only amount of times they shot at the goal. They shot at the goal way more than that. And this mentality, the shots on goal mentality, is the same mentality I want to encourage you, if you're not already, to start to bring to your comedy writing, because this is how professional comedy writers think about the work, whether it's sketch comedy or any other type of comedy writers. We want to be prolific and not precious. We're generating a lot of raw material. We're taking lots of shots at the goal, and we're not being too precious with them. And we know that only sometimes are we going to score that goal. Every now and then we're going to score that goal. Most of the stuff we're creating, we're not going to use. Most of the stuff we're creating, we're not advancing with. That's okay. For a lot of folks, you may be like this, maybe not, but for me, and I know for a lot of writers, when you first start writing comedy, you think, oh, if I have any talent, if I have aptitude, I should be kind of like scoring a goal every single time. And it can be empowering and freeing and a relief to realize that, like, oh, pro comedy writers don't approach it that way. They're not thinking I'm scoring every time. They're thinking I'm taking a million shots so I can score every now and then. And that's enough to make a living. So, anyways, I not only want to present this to you, but I want to encourage you to do a little bit of writing with us here right now. This is a game that we play sometimes in my workshops at the sketch school called Photos of the Week. It's kind of got a late night talk show kind of vibe to it, or even a social media vibe to it. But here's what we do. Like, I put on screen a series of real photos, and I encourage the writers in the workshops to write what could be the caption to the photo. Like, I'm not going to tell you the caption. I'm not going to tell you what the actual caption, but this is a real photo. It's not from somewhere in the world. Real photo, fake caption. So if you can pull up the chat box, Darcy's going to open up the chat box. If you can pull up the chat box right now, I'm just going to throw 90 seconds on the clock. I want to see if you can put shots on goal in practice. In a second, I'm going to put a photo up on the screen. For that 90 seconds, see if you can write what you think the caption for this photo could be. But not just one. As soon as you write one, start working on another. Try not to be precious with these. Just think about volume being your goal rather than it's got to be the perfect caption, right? Shots on goal. As they're coming in, I'm going to open up my chat box too and try to read as many as I can. There's the picture. Okay. That's a real photo. But in chat, what could be the fake caption? I'll read as many of these as I can, but keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going for 90 seconds on the clock. I should have worn the other hat. Oh no, I'm a rabbit. Up the rabbit hole. Rolling into Monday. Life comes at you fast. Easter bunny on crack again. Hare doesn't beat tortoise. The day the Easter bunny finally snapped. He wins by a hair. You got it's Hare. That's what's spelled. Wins by a hair. Hare. That's right. The Energizer lost its bunny. Good. We're halfway through. 45 more seconds. Get at least one more in. Just go, 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 go. Try not to think too hard about it. Just go. The worst Sunday hangover. Easter canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. There.
Onion headline.
Yeah, there you go, right? Landing on a nut. The Easter bunny on edibles. Easter hit by government cuts. Few more seconds. New Playboy Mansion concept goes horribly wrong. This year's Easter is going to be rough. 10 ways to overcome your fear of skateboards. My dentist is not going to like this. Yeah, those teeth are jumping out. Okay, that's 90 seconds. But if you're in the middle of one or got one that you're excited about, drop it in there. And we can all see what's coming into chat. Super fun stuff. So we're doing it here in real time. This is my first tip for you. Shots on goal. To be prolific and not precious when we're in generation phase, creating new material. Bring this shots on goal mentality to all of your comedy writing because this can help you both as an individual writer and in a writer's room to generate way more than what you need. If this were a late night talk show segment, for example, we put something that happened in the world today on screen, right? And then we need one caption for it, one. In 90 seconds, a writer's room could come up with a ton like this, and we pick the one strongest, right? That shots on goal in action. You could do that individually too. You could come up with, allow yourself to come up with a bunch, then pick the one you think is strongest. Okay, my second tip for you, my second way to level up, it's just the concept of game. And, at the sketch school, we're immersed in sketch comedy and game, and the term game and how we use it in game is all important to us in sketch comedy. And game is the pattern that heightens in every sketch, a pattern that heightens. Here's one example, a sort of, classic famous character from SNL, Debbie Downer, played by Rachel Dratch. They brought it back at the 50th special earlier this year, right? But I like Debbie Downer as an example just because it's real easy to pick up on the game in Debbie Downer, sort of inherent in the name of the character on purpose, right? And every time we see a Debbie Downer sketch, she's somewhere happy with a group of happy people. And every time they say what's going on that they're so happy about, she says something depressing, right? She's the downer. That's the pattern. That's the pattern. We say pattern that heightens. What do you mean pattern that heightens? Well, they've ordered them in such a way that she's getting more and more depressing as it goes on, right? That's the pattern that heightens. That's the game of Debbie Downer. And that's sort of a classic example, but we see game in all sketch and everywhere across the board. We see it in social media sketch. We see it in pitch meeting on YouTube. Maybe you're a fan of that. Well, I know what he's going to do when we watch pitch. I know what the game is when I watch pitch meeting. To tear this movie apart. Going to pick out all the flaws, right? So game is a pattern that heightens. Every sketch has one primary game. And as sketch writers, we think in game, we pitch in game, we work in game. In sketch comedy, it's all about game for us, finding that pattern to play and heighten. And game, the concept of game, that pattern that heightens, while it's all important to sketch, it's the engine of the sketch. In some ways, it is the sketch. It also translates. Like we see comedic pattern in half-hour TV comedy, in comedy screenplay, in moth-style stories, in comedic essays, in stand-up comedy. So one thing I always think is great about the how honed in we must be on game as sketch writers is that it translates to other comedy writing as well. We can use that skill as sketch writers. We're always looking for this game.
I love that, Mark. The whole idea that comedy comes from play is so central. Nowadays, people who do comedy, um, they work hard at it and they think, oh, I really have to, um, pay my dues and I got to show up and I got to do the reps and all this. There's so many analogies that are about work and and it is hard work. But at its core, comedy is playing. And so I love the concept of game, which comes from improv. And we always need to remember that it should be fun. We should be playing. And the premise, the concept that we take the pattern that uh, you know, we pick as our concept that we're going to play a game with and see it continue, should be fun, and we should be having fun doing it.
Yeah, that's so important. It's so
Love it.
important. Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're pointing out here too, Scott. Of like, yeah, we're going to the word game, right? We're going to play a game.
Yeah.
We're going to play a game and let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. My final tip for you here, way to level up number three, is to work on having an understanding of sketch devices. Sketch devices. This is a list of 9 that I feel are the ones I see the most, again, in sketch comedy world, but they translate and extend out beyond it too. Uh, Names for popular sketch devices: center and eccentrics, cutaway, entrances and exits, fish out of water, inappropriate response, mapping, old job, new job, pylon, simple but impossible task. These are formulas. They are code. They are a cheat code, each one of these, that have been proven over time. And when you know them, they save you time as a writer. They save you time individually. They save you time as a writer's room. They allow you to be more efficient as a writer. They're empowering, they're inspiring, because you realize, if I know these and I understand what these are, these devices, I don't have to reinvent the world every time I'm trying to think of a sketch or comedic concept. There are formulas that I can plug my idea into that we know work. I'm going to step out one of these out of the 9 here for a moment, and that's fish out of water. Fish out of water. So, the comedic concept of fish out of water is when we've got a character who doesn't sort of belong with the larger environment. Typically, they don't understand the rules of the environment, they have an outsider perspective. The comedic concept of fish out of water. It's a dictionary definition there, right? But we know historically, we can go all the way back to 429 BC and find fish out of water comedy. This has existed for at least 2,500 years, right?
And let me guess, Mark, does that mean that it works?
You're
People like it generally?
right. You're segueing right into my next slide, Scott, because I looked. Sometimes it actually, I think it hits people. It's like, oh, does that mean it's old or it's stale? It's like,
Is that a
no,
cliche? No.
yeah, it means it's proven and it works. But the thing is, we always have the opportunity to make it fresh by deciding, by understanding how fish out of water works, the tips, the tools, the methods to executing it, which are a codified thing. But we have an understanding of how to make it fresh. And that's by putting a new fish in different water that we haven't seen before. And I'm going to provide some evidence here, I hope, of how, yes, it's at least 2,500 years old, but it could still be fresh. I mean, these are the shows that have completely dominated the comedy category of the Emmys for the last 10 years. And every single one of these, every single one of them, is a fish out of water comedy. Ms. Maisel is a fish out of water comedy. The Bear is a fish out of water comedy. Ted Lasso is a fish out of water comedy. Barry is a hitman who's trying to be an actor. He is a fish out of water, right? Schitt's Creek is a fish out of, we were rich and now we're in this tiny town. We are the fish out of water. Ted Lasso was coaching the football team. Now he's coaching the soccer team across the pond. He is a fish out of water, right? So, and they understand fish out of water in these writers' rooms, and they understand the methodology to executing great fish out of water comedy. Here's one film example. Barbie made a gajillion dollars, right? It was the biggest movie that year. It can always be made fresh. We've never seen this before. We've never seen Barbie and Ken come to life and come into our world. So it can always be made fresh and be the biggest movie of the year. So we're always looking for new fish and new water. That's just one of these 9, right? That are codified, proven formulas and methods. My upcoming workshop that starts a week from today is breaking down all 9 of these. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But Scott, those are my 3, and we're going to be coming up on yours in a minute. But it's my 3 ways I offer up to folks here today.
Those are great, Mark. I love it. And I couldn't agree more. And you do such a good job of explaining them using analogy and terms that people have used for these things for a long time. I love that. For so many years, there wasn't like a science of comedy. Like nobody knew how to do it. It was just like this, well, where do I start? So I love when people come up with, okay, here's what this is called, here's what that's called, and explaining to people that, yeah, there are certain formulas, there are certain patterns, there are certain ways you can repeat. And I really appreciate that you explained how to make it different, how to make it new, because, you don't want to be a hack. You don't want to be doing what everybody else is doing. You have to make it different. That's the one commodity in comedy. It has to be new. It has to be different. Or people are going to be like, I've seen that joke before.
Yes. It just
Uh,
speaks to comic. You're speaking to comic voice, I think, Scott, right? Where it's like, okay, the formula is proven, the formulas works, the math is there, but what makes yours different is you, your comic voice, what you're
totally.
going to plug into it.
And along those lines, I was thinking of another sketch show that is fish out of water in almost every sketch, and that is Tim Robinson's I Think You Should Leave. In
Hmm.
every sketch, he is socially awkward and he doesn't fit with the other people who are acting normally. And that's the whole basis of the comedy, almost always. Even when he casts someone else to be the weirdo in the sketch, there's always one weirdo who doesn't belong in the normal social situation. So it's a very,
Hence the title, too, right? I think you should
I,
leave.
I think you should do. Exactly. Great title. So, and a great show for those who haven't seen it. So yeah, I'm excited to get into my three, and I want to start with uh, a little exercise like Mark did to take you one step further with what Mark said about shots on goal. So when you come up with a ton of, and that works for everything. It works for concepts. I'm going to get into it a little bit when it comes to joke beats. It comes up with it's basically a macro and a micro thing where you always want to be prolific and not precious. But the question is, well, how do you pick? If you write 20 sketch ideas, how do you know which one is a good one? I get that question a lot. And so, what I want to do is just a little open up the chat again. And if you're working on a sketch or if you have a sketch idea and you have a concept, if you could drop it in the chat, and we're just going to look at some of those. And Mark and I are just going to chime in about, could that be a good concept? Is this a good concept? Has this been done before? Is that a concept? So let's open that up and let's see what people have.
Mhm.
Darcy has opened up the chat. Animals like deer who are hunted are taught to fight back. Okay, so that's a simple concept. It's like you could do like an army sergeant training people, but it's deer, or something like that, right? Joseph and Mary. Oh, now they're going too fast. Race, Darcy, is there any way to like pause the chat? I can scroll up and then it stops scrolling. Um, a villain who always wins. That's really interesting. I love that these are short. You should always be able to explain your concept very briefly, like as brief
Yeah.
as possible. Um, calling your neighbor's house. Children just became friends. Um, I'd have to see that. The comedy angle of that is not coming through in the concept. Do you want to grab a couple, Mark? And
Oh, this is Chloe's. Hi, Chloe. I love executive coach for serial killers.
great, yeah,
That's a good character-based
yeah,
one.
that's a wonderful mix match. Um, Dr. Phil counsels Ken and Barbie. That's an interesting concept because you can't use other people's intellectual property in your sketch concepts. So you can't really use Ken and Barbie. Um, if you were to, write that sketch for a TV show or for the stage, you'd be in dicey territory there. Um, I'm here to be the downer, by the way. I'm here to say, I'm here to be the one to say, that's not working, because that's what I do. But that's how I make things funnier. So, father talks to kids about pride from position of failed backflip. Um, so it'd be an analogy about pride. Are we talking about gay pride? Or are we just talking about pride in general? I like the failed backflip, and then that becomes something. A chicken bill of rights. Um,
It's fun.
that could be good. I think animals are almost always funny. If you put
I
animals
know.
in anything,
I'm
you're
always thrilled when we've got not sketches with not people in them.
yeah.
Uh,
Voiceover artists battling for a job. I'm not seeing the comedic angle on that. Um, you know, you'd have to find it in the writing. A good concept is one where you can see the comedy right away, and your mind is already spooling it out. Oh, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen. It kind of starts writing itself. Um,
I feel
on
that way a little bit about this one, Scott, which is Lindsay's. What if a celebrity chef didn't know how to cook? To me, I'm already hearing in that second tip I was just talking about of game. Of like I could
Totally.
sort of see what the pattern would be.
Yep.
And so anytime we could see a short pitch like that where I can go, ooh, I can kind of see what the pattern is. I can kind of see what the game is. That
Totally.
excites me. I feel like there's something there. I'd know how to riff off of that. I'd know how to brainstorm off of it. I'd know how to build off of it.
And incompetence is almost always funny.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
so an unusual GoFundMe from Kathy. That's a little vague. Um, and Mark, you were putting some ideas in here while this was happening. Is that what
I,
was going
I am not, but somebody
on?
is
Maybe.
posing as me, I think.
Uh, so
Well, if they're good, then I should take credit for them. Yeah, wait a
yeah,
minute. That
you
is me
should.
then.
Uh, Cooking directions get extreme. That's a game I can see escalating. Um, a buddy cop film with us two. That's what they call an in joke, but I appreciate it, James.
Scott, let me
Um,
grab this one by Simon. Mormons at Love Island, which is jumping out at me because that's reading to me as fish out of water, right?
totally,
Which we were just covering. And it's like, okay, yes, I know where we could go with that. There's legs to
totally,
it. There's a pattern already I can see. I know what device it's in.
totally.
There's
I can
something
totally
there.
see. Yeah, the confession cam would totally be like, I like Julie, but I just wish there were like six more of Julie, or something like that. Okay, so that's great, everybody. Thank you for posting those. I hope that gives you a little insight into how to pick your best concept. And like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in one of my tips. But let's get to, if you don't mind advancing, Mark. There you are. Thank you. To my first tip, tip number four here
Mm,
today is riff more.
mhm.
So you may think that coming up with concepts for sketches is hard because you have to do a lot of them, and it can be. It is a bit of a slog to be that prolific. Well, guess what? The work isn't over because in a sketch, you're going to have a series of joke beats. There are points along the sketch where there's a definite laugh line, where something happens, something escalates, something builds to a new absurd level or whatever. Each one of those joke beats is basically your concept, but funnier, bigger, more absurd. And so you got to come up with those. And the way I recommend coming up with those is to riff more. And riffing is what they do in comedy rooms. Um, if you've seen comedy rooms in the old Dick Van Dyke TV show, comedians, writers sitting around throwing ideas around. Now, the way writers' rooms are depicted in shows like the Dick Van Dyke Show and many other shows is completely inaccurate. That's really not how it goes. It's really much more structured so that you can capture the best ideas. But I can't imagine writing anything without first taking it to a bunch of people and saying, hey, here's this concept I got. What do you think could happen in this concept? Just like Mark and I were doing with some of the concepts that we saw that you guys posted, we start imagining the sketch in our mind. Oh, here's a joke I can see. You need a group of people to give you some ideas. Of course, you can do it yourself, but it's 1,000 times harder. And when you get a group, people are happy to help and they propose a joke beat. The kind of common practice in comedy is that that's yours. You're going to write it. They don't own it or anything like that. They're just helping, and you'll help them when they're writing a sketch. You'll give them ideas, and they're free. You give that to other people. Now, whether you work in a professional writer's room or whether you're um, just sending something out to friends, it can be so helpful to get those riffs because that helps you visualize what the sketch could be because some of the riffs you'll find funny, others you won't. Then you'll start to see the direction your sketch could go. Ah, this is the funny direction because these are all funny. And of course, you come up with your own as well. Make a list of 20, 30, whatever. So that riffing, that's the meat of your sketch. How that game escalates and gets funnier and builds as the sketch goes on. Um, that's some of the hardest stuff to do in comedy. So use your most precious resource in life, which is other people. Um, we can move on to the next um, tip. Oh, I've got more. There's more slides here. We'll do a couple of examples here. So, some of the best riffing I've seen in sketch comedy was in the Dana Carvey show, a classic show from the 90s. They had one of the best writing staffs of any show ever compiled. They had Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Dana Carvey, Robert Smigel, Charlie Kaufman, who's an Oscar-winning screenwriter at this point, and Louis C.K. was on the staff. And so when they got together in a room with a funny concept, you know they had some great riffs, and that allowed them to beat out their sketches and know that, okay, we're going to go from this funny thing to this even funnier thing and this even funnier thing. And another sketch show that does this really well is Inside Amy Schumer. I've got slides for these both, Mark. Um, there, keep going. You'll see Dana Carvey and Steve.
Oh yeah.
Here's Amy Schumer. Um, oh, and we have Scrooge McDuck twice there. But Amy Schumer, if you watch her sketch show, she also had an amazing team of writers. Neil Brennan worked as a writer for her. Tig Notaro was a writer. So again, you have this incredible brain trust. It helps to have great brain trust of people riffing ideas. We would do it for every article that we wrote and every video we produced for The Onion by coming to the Onion writers' room and riffing. You can totally get a similar effect by just reaching out to some of your friends, your comedy cohorts, and getting their feedback. People are surprisingly good at this. There's something about being in that riffing environment that makes people a little more easy about throwing out jokes. It becomes less anxiety inducing as when you're just sitting there alone staring at a blank sheet of paper. So what you want, if we advance, we'll see Scrooge McDuck again, is an
Mm,
embarrassment of riches.
mm,
You want so many joke beats that you can try in your sketch so that you're picking the best ones and you're putting them in order from funny to funniest as the sketch goes on.
mm,
And that's my way to level up number 4.
mm. Scott, I just
Oh, yeah.
want to jump in for a second
Sure.
and say how much I strongly agree with this concept of the overall riff concept and getting feedback from other folks. And this medium we're on right now is another option. You can always jump on Zoom, jump online, FaceTime with folks, even if it's just a couple other people. Can I read this for you? Can I get some thoughts? Will you just give me a little feedback? We don't even have to, leave our houses to be able to do
Yeah.
this stuff.
Well, I do it every week as part of my writer's room.
Mm,
Comedians, comedy
mm,
writers, we get together, people do stand up, they read their sketch, and we all give comments and we all riff. And it really helps people to bring in a first draft or even just a concept and get that feedback. It just breathes life into the idea,
yeah,
and that allows you to be more prolific. You get that feedback, you churn out the sketch, and then next day you're starting another one. And that's the same what I was talking about, the macro level of shots on goal is write a ton of sketches. All right, so we'll move on to way to level up number 5, which is stay on track. Now, what does that mean? This is one of the biggest problems I see in sketch comedy and most short comedy is somebody comes up with a funny concept and they start writing it, and what you get is kind of silliness and craziness, and you can feel the writer kind of getting bored of the concept and changing it, moving to something else, having something crazy and unpredictable or unexpected happen. You don't want that. Uh, and if you go one more, Mark, you'll see how I illustrate this in this beautiful train picture. You want to stay on track. Now, what does that mean? Track. The track is the game of the scene. What is your concept? What is the one pattern that you're going to continue to execute? This is really hard. Um, it's really hard. So you see SNL, great example. There are some sketches on SNL that we've all seen that we don't think are funny. often at the end of the show. It's like that's where they're putting their stuff that's, maybe not the best that week or whatever. These are the top professional sketch writers in the world. They've got an incredible writers' room of incredibly funny, talented, and accomplished people. Even for them, it's hard. So, um, but what you see in some of those sketches is the same joke repeated over and over. It's like you establish the concept and then you kind of do another joke in that concept, then another joke in that concept. You're not escalating. They're staying on track, but they're not building. So staying on track means you're moving forward. The train goes from point A to point B. That means start funny and end funniest. The track is staying on concept, but keeping the joke building, growing, getting more absurd, coming at it from different angles. That's what staying on track means. And it's really, really hard to do. It's so easy to fly off the rails. Like I said, sometimes when you're writing, you, the writer, are sitting there, you know, poring over this script. You get bored of it after half a page. You've been writing it for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes after a half page. You got to think of the audience. They're going to watch your sketch. It's going to be over in 3 to 5 minutes. So they're not going to get tired of it. You need to be diligent about staying on track. In at the Onion, we call the track the take. Like, what's your take on this
Mhm.
piece? So there's a concept, maybe there's a subject matter, maybe there's an environment or whatever. What's your comedic take? That's the concept. If you stay on that take and you don't change that take, that means you're on the right track. So you're telling the same type of joke and you're staying on pattern with the game of your scene, you're on the right track. It's a little like walking a tightrope. It's so easy to just step one way the wrong way and do like a joke that's a different take. One mistake you see a lot is somebody they'll make a character joke. Some character in the scene will do some random thing that's funny or that violates their character and it's not on track. The reason I like the tightrope analogy is because what happens when you step aside one way or the other on the wrong side? The sketch is over. You've lost
Mhm.
everybody. The audience is not with you anymore. You have to stay on track. A great example of a sketch that stays on track, that if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. Oh, what's going on there, Mark? Got a
Oh,
mystery slide.
yeah, I thought it was an envelope with a surprise inside of it. I don't know what
No, that's
it's
a
a
mystery
surprise to
slide.
us. It's actually just a surprise to us what this
Yeah,
slide is.
it should be a still from the substitute teacher sketch on Key and Peele, which
Oh,
is a very popular sketch you can see on YouTube if you search for it. Again,
sometimes referred to as Aaron, the Aaron sketch.
yeah. So you can see how what the writers have in that sketch is what I call joke discipline. You could tell a lot of funny jokes with those characters, with that scenario, with a funny, hard ass substitute teacher um, dealing with a classroom. They stay very disciplined with one joke, and that is he gets the students' names wrong. And that's the only thing that escalates. It's an excellent example of what staying on track means. Now, Mark, do we have the other slides after that, or are they all going to be
We
question
do.
marks? We
No, they're
just had
back.
one,
They're back. They're
we
back.
just had one missing
Just
slide.
that one. Yeah. Poor Keegan.
Poor Keegan. But I hope everybody searches for that sketch and watches it if you haven't. Even if you have seen it, it's worth rewatching with through the lens of writing a sketch and what the game of the scene is and how they stay on track in such a disciplined way. The track is small, it's a tightrope. And if you go one way, this way or that way, the sketch is over because it's now you're off your game.
There's so many times, Scott, in our writers' rooms at sketch school where a writer will bring a first draft of a sketch, and it might not be long. It might be 2 pages, 2.5 pages, but our feedback will be, "There's two sketches here, or there's three sketches here," right? Because like that track is so narrow. It's just I
Very
mean,
nice.
right. So it's like we actually could get two sketches out of this because there's
Yeah.
one track here and there's one track here, and follow each of these.
Think of it as niching down. Like your narrow track is your niche. And if you veer off that niche, like let's say you're a gardening expert that focuses on radishes. If you start talking, you're going to build an audience. People are going to come to you, people who want to grow better radishes. You start talking about cucumbers, they're going to be, what the hell is this? You know, that's what staying on track is all about. Um, so let's move on to way to level up number 6, which is escalate to absurdity. One of the other primary mistakes that I see in sketch comedy or any sort of short comedy is maybe they have a great concept. They got that. They stay on track, which is great. That's hard to do. Um, but the next thing that's really hard to do is escalate and escalate to absurdity. Like I said, sometimes even the top sketch writers on SNL will seem to just be repeating the same joke over and over. They got a great concept. They got a great mindset, staying on track, but they're not escalating to absurdity. One great example of this, another sketch I recommend you go and see, which is a beautiful example of escalation in comedy, is this famous sketch pre Monty Python called The Four Yorkshiremen, where these old guys try to one up each other on how hard they had it as kids. It's on YouTube. Look it up. I can scarcely think of a better example, but I'll give you more at the end of this tip of literally a master class in how to escalate because each story gets more absurd. Each story gets more impossible. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're playing here. Remember, this is a game. So you don't have to think logically. This is comedy. There are no rules. You can escalate and break the rules of the universe to tell your joke. As long as you're staying on track, as long as you're staying true to your concept, you can escalate as far as you want. And ideally, you're going to hear some of those riffs when you send your concept out to people that are going to be outrageous and absurd and just silly. And you're going to realize, that works good toward the end of the sketch because we're going to really escalate to this totally absurd level. Um, you want to ask yourself, like, how far can I go with this? And push it, go there. See what happens when you go as far as you can go. You can go a lot further than you think. And again, you want to stay on track. So, for some examples, um, I mentioned Monty Python. If you dig up the old Monty Python's Flying Circus and look at their sketches, you will see they are masters of escalating every sketch to an absolutely absurd level.
Mhm.
It goes into complete like metaphysical nonsense. Um, they're absolutely playing. Another great example, some of the best escalation I've seen in modern comedy is on Portlandia. There's a picture here of the sketch that starts with a great premise. Um, our two characters are in a restaurant and they're ordering chicken, and the waiter tells them uh, the name of the chicken, what farm it came from, which maybe some of us have seen in some of the more uh, you know farm to table type restaurants or whatever. Now, a normal sketch writer writing that sketch will think, okay, how can I escalate that? Well, how about the farmer comes into the table and tells them how great of a friend the chicken was. What else could we do? Um, the um, the chicken's offspring, come into the restaurant and talk about how great their parent was and how delicious they'll be. No, 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 no. The way they did it on Portlandia was they were so joke disciplined, stayed on track so well that they had to go and visit the farm. So we leave the restaurant, we go to the farm, and it turns out it's a cult, and they join the cult and they marry the cult leader, and it just goes beyond where you possibly thought it could go. But it's always on track because what the concept was these diners care too much about where the chicken comes from. So they literally marry into the farm where the chicken comes from. And it's a beautiful example of how far you can always go farther than you think, escalating a sketch. So those
That,
are my three, Mark.
that sketch, Scott, also is from the Colin the Chicken sketch is from the Portlandia pilot. It's from the first episode of Portlandia. So
Wow.
it's so strong that it helped them sell that show.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, people see that and they're like, okay, this is comedy. They know how to escalate.
Right?
It's one of the hardest things to do in comedy is that escalation.
Well, and so I just want to briefly mention on this point that you made, Scott, which is it's so important, go further than you think. And I know for me personally, times as a writer, and I know with folks we work with sometimes, it can feel a little, it can be challenging and also a little scary. Like, oh, I don't know if I'd want it to go this far in the
Right.
actual piece. And what I try to tell myself and encourage others to do is like just have the perspective of you don't have to keep it all, but at least for the riffing stage, let yourself go there. And
Shots
guess
on goal.
shots on goal. And guess what? You're probably gonna want to keep it all when you do escalate to a certain. But like, it
Yeah.
can feel a little bit scary at first, but like that's okay. That's okay.
No, I totally agree. That does happen.
Here's the summary of the 6 ways that we've given to level up. Shots on goal, game, and devices were mine. Riff more, stay on track, escalate to absurdity. We're Scott's. We're gonna put up a couple sketches in a minute. Scott and I
By
are
the
gonna give
way,
some.
everybody,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, Mark. Did you
No.
did you like how we were in Mark's sketch school brand for his tips? Then we moved to my How to Write Funny brand, colors and fonts and look, and now we're back to Mark's for the main structure of this format. That's what I mean about you're getting two different schools of thought coming together, and you can see how we use many of the same concepts. We have different names for them and kind of different ways that we approach them mentally. But these are principles that apparently all sketch writers and short comedy writers use.
Right. Yes. And we both have opportunities coming up to be able to learn more with us and from us because today's workshop has sponsors. And guess who the sponsors are? We are
We are
the
we are the sponsors. Buy our steaks and our airline.
sponsors. Scott's going to tell you a little bit about my thing that's coming up pretty soon at the sketch school. It's
Absolutely.
pretty soon. It starts 1 week from today at the sketch school.
Yeah, so Mark's got a workshop coming up. And if you've ever had a funny idea and you didn't know how to turn it into a great sketch, Mark's got you covered. So this workshop, 9 secret sketch devices that deliver, is a 6-week online workshop packed with the same tools pro writers and viral social media creators use to make sketches land every time. He's going to do it live on Zoom. It starts this coming Saturday, August 16, and this is the only time he's offering it this year. So even if you can't be there live, you're going to get all the recordings if you sign up. You're going to get the 9 proven sketch cheat codes that we talked about earlier. You're going to learn to write funnier, faster, with more confidence. You're going to learn about these devices like the pylon, the inappropriate response, and the other 9. You're going to learn dozens of classic and modern sketch examples using video. You're going to get a PDF guide, which is yours to keep forever. It's going to have all this great info in it that you can refer to when you write your sketches in the future. Again, this is the only time this is being offered in 2025. It's going to be live on Zoom for 6 Saturdays starting August 16. You'll get all the recordings and materials. And there's a bonus exclusive to those in this webinar, and that is a 30-minute Zoom coaching session one-on-one with Mark, where Mark, I assume you'll be, if people have a sketch or two, you'll read them, give them some notes, and talk through it.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to give people information at the end of this webinar and emails will follow up as well for how to sign up for your sketch workshop, and that's how you can support this free webinar by supporting our lovely sponsor, Mark.
But also, what about our lovely sponsor,
Oh,
Scott?
look at that. Yeah, I'm also offering something. You can't see it there, but it says Scott, it says no dickering around. And that is my Substack. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that, Mark? Now, we're
Yes.
taking a commercial break, everybody, so bear with us.
We will come back to cut. Yeah, but the inner circle of Scott's Substack is what is one of our sponsors here today. If you're looking for accountability, regular assignments, someone to compel you to produce comedy sketches or comedy writing on a regular basis and help you improve fast, Scott is the evil mastermind who will bring you that discipline. He'll be your wicked taskmaster on Substack, where he is not fooling around, no dickering around. Is a daily comedy, is a daily column, and a comedy and productivity community dedicated to helping you get laughs. Scott shows up every week with his work and encourages his readers to follow suit. They get wonderful support and encouragement from the community, which is made up of amateurs and professionals alike. So, in this inner circle, Scott, some of the things that are included and involved: a daily Substack column, a weekly accountability chat, monthly Zoom calls, two online video comedy courses, lifetime membership in the writers room, and also 30-minute one-on-one coaching call with Scott. And your books, Scott, all four of your books, digital copies of the How to Write Funny series that so many professional comedians read and swear by and love and preach about. There's so much good stuff in there included as well.
Those are the two courses, the Comedy Business School and the How to Write Funny course.
To full online video courses. This is like having your own personal comedy coach for a year. This evil mastermind has pictured right here. Scott, anything else you want to add on your sponsor offer?
No, thank you for all the kind words, Mark. I promise that I didn't write any of that for you. I'm lying, of course. Um, but we have a really wonderful surprise for everybody on this webinar because you're going to get a couple of bonuses for coming to this webinar, like our slides and our notes on the two sketch examples that we're going to look at coming up. Plus, we're going to give you the option of signing up for either Mark's workshop or my Inner Circle membership for a year. They're the same price. They're both $199. But we are going to give the bonuses of each to all of you, no matter who you pick. So all you have to do is pick one to sign up for, whichever one resonates more with you. You're going to get all the bonuses. How's that for a deal?
Yeah, we're gonna give you a ton of content both from
Oh my God,
Scott
it's like
and me.
this is an absurd offer that no one can refuse, is what this is, Mark.
I would not refuse this evil mastermind I see on the slides
I
right now,
think
that's
that
for
might be
sure.
dangerous. I think you might get a poisoned water supply.
We're going to jump into section number two, case studies
This will be
and
fun.
scripts. This will be fun. So Scott and I have each chosen a sketch, and we thought we'd pop it up on screen and kind of speed read it. And then we're going to give some of our feedback because we thought it might be interesting and helpful for you to see, like how we look at short comedy and how we might break it down. And we've actually jotted down some notes on the drive, but on purpose. This was part of our plan here today. I didn't look with any depth at Scott's notes, nor did he mine, because we wanted this to feel like kind of a writer's room brainstormy session as well. So there might be stuff that we have that's similar. There might be stuff that's different, and we're all about to find out together, like how we look at the sketches. The first one's called Yoga Cowboys. It's from a writer here at Sketch School named Michael Hayes. Michael's in one of our writers' rooms at Sketch School, and this is just a sketch that came into the writers' room last week. And it was hot off the presses. There's an early draft. It's a first draft, but it did some things that I thought were relevant to our discussion today, which is part of the reason I asked Michael if we could read it. So, Michael, thank you for allowing us to. Um, I'll zip through these character listing here. Yoga Cowboys. Sky Metal Sage are patrons at the cafe. Sunny is the cafe owner. Zephyr is the barista. Jared is the toughest yogi in Williamsburg. Valley Wind is the leader of the Vinyasa gang, always looks at everyone with hostility. Stretch is Valley Wind's sidekick, laughs uncontrollably at the slightest provocation. Yoga Cowboys is the name of the sketch. Scott, what if for this one I'll read all the action line, stage direction stuff, and then we could just kind of switch off on the characters? Is that
That
okay?
sounds good. Yeah, and we'll try to do each other's voice for each character when it's our turn to do that character.
Interior Cafe Day. Patrons sitting at Loving Earth Cafe, a yoga themed cafe. They wear cowboy hats and western belts over yoga outfits. Spurs are attached to their tights just above their feet. Meadow and Sky sit together eating smoothies and salads. Sage stretches. Jared sits alone looking cool and collected, a yoga mat tucked in his western belt with oversized belt buckle. Zephyr rushes in and out of breath.
Boss, it's Valleywind, the leader of the Vinyasa gang. He's coming this way.
Not the Vinyasa gang. They're the most ruthless yoga gang this side of Williamsburg. Sonny exits. Zephyr follows, but before he can leave, Valleywind and Stretch walk into the sound of slamming saloon doors. Valleywind has the biggest yoga mat yet, tucked in his western belt, and the biggest hat. Zephyr backs around the corner, intimidated. Sky hides under the table. Sage makes himself small, puts his salad on his head to hide. Did
Did
someone?
someone
Oh.
someone mentioned Vinyasa?
Stretch does lion's breath. Valleywind and Stretch do an intimidating sun salutation. Valleywind squats and picks up the salad from in front of Meadow. He takes a bite, then throws it intimidatingly on the ground.
These protein smoothies look done just about right for us.
Stretch laughs maniacally.
You granola bunnies ain't in no hurry to eat, are you?
Stretch laughs.
Are you? Because we've been working our heart chakras hard and we need the protein load.
Valleywind pulls the chair out from under Meadow, leaving them in chair position. Meadow scrambles away, holding the chair position. Sky scrambles out from under the table. Valleywind and Stretch sit down, also in chair position. They start eating Meadow and Sky's food. They grab food from other tables. That food is healthy, real healthy. We done hit the jackpot. Sonny walks in, carrying a tray with a salad and smoothie. Sonny and Valleywind look at each other for a moment of tension.
What you looking at? Still trying to pay off your college loans, college boy?
Stretch laughs complicitly.
I guess I'm Valleywind. That's okay.
That Eastern religion's PhD ain't looking so good now, is it?
Stretch laughs wildly. Sonny starts to cross the room toward Jared. Valleywind trips him. He spills the quinoa salad he's carrying. That was my quinoa salad with a large green shake.
You heard him, dude. Pick it up.
Valley-Wind's hand moves to his yoga mat.
Pilgrim, hold it. I said you, Valleywind. You pick it up.
Jared stands up, hand on his yoga mat. I'll pick it up. Jared does side plank and pushes Stretch aside. You pick it up.
It's 2-1. You're outnumbered.
People are yoga happy around here. I don't want no trouble. Someone's gonna overextend their hip flexor the way things are going. Sonny picks up the mess and dumps it on someone's table. Jared and Valleywind continue to stare at each other.
This isn't over.
Valleywind turns to go. He turns back wielding his yoga mat. Valleywind, Sonny, and Jared pummel each other with yoga mats and blocks. Blackouts. All right.
We always applaud in my writer's room after we read somebody's thing.
Got to.
Little custom. So,
Yeah.
yeah, do we have a way to open up the comments that we made?
Yeah. I'll kind of slide it over here, Scott, and we'll see them, I believe.
There they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll just give you my overall. I thought it was a cute, nice concept. Yoga cowboys, like that's one of those concepts that you get. You can see, oh, it has funny contrast, tough, rough and tumble cowboys contrasted with yoga, light and healthy. So great. It's a little almost like a kids show concept because it's very simple. And then the way it's executed, I was missing a little bit of like what the take is. Like the take that we went with is really obvious. It's like, okay, they're cowboys, but they do yoga, but then what? Like there's a lot of mapping, but it didn't seem to necessarily escalate, except for in the story where it seemed like we were going to get to violence, and then we do get to violence in the end. But that was separate from that was like the story. What about the joke track, the pattern? That didn't seem to escalate. So what was your thought, Mark?
Yeah, similar in that one of the reasons I wanted to choose it is because, of course, one of my three ways is understanding these devices, and the mapping device is really jumping out at me. That's one of the nine that I cover in my workshop, and it's along with fish out of water, I think probably the two most popular and most used of the devices in mapping. We're sort of combining two worlds and the combining becomes the game, and I think it's a really vivid example of that. And we see it right from the title, yoga and cowboys, right? The world of yoga, the world of cowboys, let's put them together, and we're getting gags. So I thought it was a nice example in a real vivid way of that tool.
Yeah, agreed. So what would you do to improve this sketch?
I'm interested in what you were saying, Scott, about, maybe a stronger take. Yes, they're yoga cowboys. And what? I also felt like, um, because we're so immersed in that sort of Western saloon showdown, here's the gang, there's the gang. One thing I would pitch is building to a bigger climax in the sketch. I
Yeah.
kind of want to see the duel. I kind of want to see the big showdown. Somebody, for me, I'd love to see someone get killed or the equivalent of that. What is the yoga pose showdown where not everyone makes it out okay, right?
Totally.
So I think
Totally.
that could, and maybe that would address, if we're building towards that, that might also address some of your note, Scott, of like the giving a little more oomph, a little more why
Mhm.
to this game.
Yeah, because if we escalate the premise of okay, this is cowboy stuff, but with yoga, we kind of need to address the tropes of cowboy stories. So they always end in a duel where the fastest gun in the West shoots the other guy. So who's better at yoga? How do we use that to kill another person? It's funny in the end when they beat each other with the yoga mats, but it's a little off take because I expect the yoga to be like I expect them to be in the
Yep.
small town with they're standing and facing each other, doing yoga poses or something, and somehow the yoga poses cause harm to the other person. Yeah, exactly. It has to follow along the tropes of the cowboy storyline. So then we're mapping not only yoga onto cowboys, we're mapping yoga onto the cowboy story, that you always see.
Yeah, I will. I do want to quickly note, like one thing I always cover on mapping. I personally am a proponent of, and I think we often see in mapping, us really wanting to make it hyper obvious to the audience when using this device what the two worlds are that we're combining. So, along with like the awesome visuals that Michael has here to open up the sketch, which I think it does a very good job of showing us.
Agreed.
I might even pitch going further and putting some type of voiceover at the beginning. Welcome to San Francisco in 1847. It's the old Western times, but San Francisco was ahead of the game on yoga. Like, or
Yeah.
something along those lines that's like really absolutely for 1000% sure tells us we're combining this and this audience. And now let's enjoy that game together.
Yeah, the audience needs to be told what the joke is. And if,
Yes.
if it's not that obvious, if you're not doing an obvious like inciting incident where you lay out the game of the scene clearly. If it's a premise that starts right at the top, it's really helpful. Like you showed that SNL thing with Debbie Downer, they're telling us what the joke is. There's a famous story of Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert doing this sketch on the Dana Carvey show, where they were these two waiters who were nauseated by the idea of food.
Yeah.
And they were playing the sketch, and the other writers were like, "It's not working. We're not getting it." And Robert Smigel is, it's just a matter of you have to explain the joke to people. So at the beginning of the sketch, they just put a big title on the screen, Waiters Who Are Nauseated by Food.
Right.
So now the audience gets it and all the jokes work. Um,
Right.
so no, that's a good point. And just minor here for formatting, you generally don't want to put like all the characters at the top of a sketch. You generally don't want this much action. You want to keep that really tight. It kind of depends what your goal for the sketch is, but like if this were for a sketch packet, we're almost half a page down before we get to the first line. You want to get to those lines as quickly as possible. I threw some suggestions in there about how I would word these. so much of what's in here is like you're never supposed to put in a script what the audience isn't going to know just watching it, because then the reader of the script has information that the audience won't, which isn't really good. Um, and the title is one of them. And you point out there, like, yeah, we, the reader, know the concept, but if you perform this sketch, the audience would be behind and they would need some kind of clue.
Yeah. And Scott, as I switch to the other sketch here, these notes that we've written and the margin on these pieces is one of our bonuses as
Right.
part of our sponsored offers. And I just want to follow up on
Michael is going to get them for free because it's his sketch and he
that's right. And I dropped a little bit more info about Michael's in chat as well, folks. But like the a lot of times when I notice for beginning writers, and I was like this too when I first started writing sketch, they sometimes get nervous about the being too obvious with the sketch premise, about just telling the audience like, "Hey, these are nauseated waiters,"
right.
and that feels like a little too, I don't know, on the nose. But we're talking about short comedy here today. Sketch is short comedy. We don't have a lot of time.
Yep.
It's a short form, and it's usually not subtle. We're hitting them over the head with it. You got to tell
Absolutely.
them what the joke is, as you said, Scott.
Yeah. So this sketch is from Peter Clark Deutsch. He brought this sketch to my writer's room last week, and Peter's a great sketch writer, and he has a wonderful. I appreciate you promoting Michael's upcoming show. Uh, I recommend heading to Peter's Instagram. He has a joke Instagram account called Jump Kick Funding, which is a parody of GoFundMe. And he writes great sketches, and he always brings a new one to the writer's room. And this is his latest, and I thought it was a really interesting sketch to talk about. So let's read this. We want to do the same thing where I'll read the action on this one, and we'll trade off the
Yeah,
characters.
that sounds fun.
All right, so interior courthouse, jury selection room. A clerk wheels in an old television and VCR set in front of seated potential jurors.
All right, all right. Thank you all for coming in for jury selection. I know you're all eager to get home, so let's get this over with. State law requires me to show you this orientation video so you know what to expect as a juror if selected. Now, this is an old video from the 80s, so some things on this might be a little outdated.
And I should say, as we go on here, this is a bit of an R-rated sketch. So if you're triggered by that, oh, thank you, Darcy, for posting Jump Kit Funding. You might want to tune out because we're going to get a little R-rated. The clerk pops in with the VHS tape, and the TV screen starts to play a grainy video with muffled royalty-free music. It's just the New York State government logo at first, and then we dissolve to.
Hi, I'm O.J. Simpson. You probably know me as the Hall of Fame running back for the Buffalo Bills, but today I'm here to talk you through jury service to ensure that you help the innocent go free and the criminals go behind bars.
The jurors look at each other confused.
O.J. Simpson?
Like I said, it's an old video. We had to get cool celebrities of the time to make this interesting.
Now, as jurors, in order for you to reach a verdict, you're going to have to evaluate a plethora of evidence, like this knife, for instance. Let's examine it.
He points to a knife on a table beside him.
Oh, before we do that, I need to make sure I put on my special evidence handling gloves.
He pulls out a pair of black gloves, slips them on with ease.
They fit just right.
Okay, what?
Shut up, Jesus. For instance, this knife could have been used by a jealous ex-lover to stab his ex and her new boyfriend. Or it could just be a normal kitchen knife. Always make sure to consult one another to come to a unanimous decision. Let's see what my fellow jurors on this case has to say.
In walks another man.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Epstein. You probably know me from my finance work and nothing else. Yep, I'd say the person did it.
Jeffrey Epstein is in this?
If you want us to pay for a new video, be my fucking guest. God, every fucking week with these people. Now, while you're serving on a jury, there's a chance you might be sequestered by the judge, which means you will be barred from contacting anyone in the outside world. For instance, if I'm being sequestered, I'll make sure to say goodbye to my wife, Nicole, who I love very much and who I will always love.
Jury service means you'll also be expected to forego any vacations you had planned. So that means no remote tropical island getaways for this fellow.
I know there's a lot of hindsight that wasn't available back then, but this still feels illegal that we're watching it.
Yeah, now I want to be a juror even less.
I'll shoot you right now if you don't shut it. The clerk pulls out a gun.
Whoa, whoa. Why do you have a gun? Aren't only bailiffs supposed to have those?
Try me, motherfucker. This video's almost over, so let's all quiet down and finish watching it.
Why don't you maintain your role as OJ there, Mark?
Serving as juror, serving as juror is your civic duty and essential in upholding the foundations of the American justice system.
And in case you get hungry on the job, our friend from out of town knows of some of the best spots for lunch.
Joining them is a Muslim man.
Hi, I'm Osama bin Laden, and you probably don't know who I am because I'm just some random Saudi man fighting the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. But if there's one place I love to eat while I'm in America, it's the restaurant at the top of the World Trade Center.
Okay, y'all need a new video.
The clerk continues to brandish the gun. Hey, what did I say?
So, from all of us, delightful gentlemen, we want to wish you a productive and good faith jury service where you carefully and accurately analyze all the evidence before you.
Thank you for coming into court today.
And in case I have an untimely death, just know that I didn't kill myself.
Video goes to static.
Any questions?
Wait, what? All right.
And all
Thank
right.
you,
We'll
Peter.
follow your tradition and get some.
Yeah. So, why don't you go first with your off-the-cuff reaction to this sketch, Mark?
This sketch, as you mentioned, Scott, came in, to one of your writers' rooms, and so when you sent it to me, it was totally fresh to me. I had no history with it, and there were a couple things that jumped out at me, especially in regards to the tips I was given today. One, I think that there is a very clear game in it, right? There's this sort of shock value game of these these villains being part of this video from before they became famous for their notorious and horrific acts.
Right.
And so that jumped out at me. And the first hit of it, with like, hi, I'm OJ Simpson. You probably remember the running back from the, got me. Like, it made me laugh. I thought it was a heck of a reveal. And it made me laugh out loud for sure. So game was present. I like that about it. Also, just want a quick mention in the top here. We were talking a moment ago about being really obvious. Another way we want to, make sure that we're being obvious in our sketches is just properly setting up the exposition, the who, the what, and the where. And I like that the clerk here in Peter's sketch just does nothing but goes, here's who we are, here's where we are, here's what's going on. Everybody good? Now we're going to play the comic game. Right? Like I just think it's really good just to set us in it. So I enjoyed all that. I have a couple pitches on it in a second, but I'll let you jump in, Scott.
Great. Yeah, I was fascinated by the sketch because I agree. I thought it was a really interesting, good concept. This idea of outmoded videos that you play at court, where it's like the old celebrities. I remember in New York, they used to have the old celebrities talking in the cabs, where you'd get in the cab and it'd be a celebrity telling you to wear your seatbelt. It reminded me of that. And so, yeah, OJ was a great execution of that premise. And so, to me, and it's so great to be able to like apply some of the theory that we just talked about to a real sketch. But to me, the game of a scene has to be inherent in the premise, in the concept. The concept is like the soil and the game is like the plant. And that's what I mean when I talk about finding the right take for a sketch. So I thought this sketch had the wrong take. The first joke was great and it was on take. But then each successive person, like Jeffrey Epstein comes in, Osama comes in, and then the clerk is getting more violent, and the other jurors really don't go anywhere. They're just confused. That felt like the take kind of fizzled on me.
My two primary pitches you just touched on, Scott, so we're in the same ballpark with those. One is I felt like I wanted to be rooted in a certain time period, and it starts me with OJ playing for the Buffalo Bills, and then I wasn't sure timeline wise, like, wait a minute, was Epstein not what was Epstein doing at that time? And Osama, maybe that it does work all out chronologically, but I'm saying in my mind, I think of them from being from somewhat different eras. So especially
Right.
Epstein feels so relevant now. It felt
Right.
almost jarring to me to have OJ and Epstein in the same one, even though I know he's been dead for a minute. But I think just in terms of the news cycle of it, right? Like
Yeah,
so that.
that was a bit of friction that makes it a little hard for this to go down. Um, my suggestion for this sketch, so these are the sort of discussions we have in the writers' room all the time.
Mhm.
And again, I'm sure they do it in on SNL and all the other sketch shows where you see a draft of a sketch and there are some good things about it, and it's like then you discuss, well, what is the best take for this sketch? And typically there is a best take. Like you can arrive at it. It's rare that something has two potential takes that are just as good. It's almost always very strange how that works. One really good one that everyone agrees, that's the take. Um, and so all we can do at this point is throw out ideas for what we think is the best take. And I'm thinking that the main joke of this sketch is the antiquated video that shouldn't still be used in the courtroom because the person is disgraced. So my thinking was, well, why can't we escalate this to absurdity? Why can't we cut to the year 2055 and have another jury in the same room, the same set, with a different clerk, different potential jury members, looking at a tape from somebody that we know now that we can pretend was disgraced, and they can all be upset about it. Somebody who like is held to the highest possible esteem. And then we do that one more time to the even further future, basically taking what I think is the theme of the sketch that oh my God, we used to worship OJ, and now he's like this total pariah. The satirical theme seems to be that you can't trust your heroes. You know, you can't trust,
Mm.
nobody's a good person. Like everybody's going to disappoint you at some point. Very dark subtext, which I love. So I would want to show that being executed in different environments. And to me, that would be fun and funny to have that be the game of the scene, that we keep going in the future and people keep getting disappointed by their people until the end. There's nobody who can be a trusted expert. Nobody can be on jury duty because nobody is trusted. It probably would feed into the jury where, you know, the jury, nobody in the jury is perfect. You know, the clerk could have skeletons in their closet. That was my idea for how, if I were assigning a second draft of this, I would say explore that and see what happens with that angle.
Yeah. I think that's a great direction for it. And I did just want to quickly add, if for some reason it did stay with this same take and game, I would like to pitch that the jurors revolt a little bit more
Totally. I
and
had the same thought.
win by the end. I think they should destroy that VHS, make sure that thing never plays again. I'm slightly concerned that the sketch is going to come off like, we're sort of enjoying laughing at these horrific acts without these folks getting their comeuppance in it, these villains getting their comeuppance in any way.
Right.
And I worry that that might feel a little icky. And I think one way to counter that is the jurors, flip the TV over, smash the VHS, smash all the other copies, and make their own video for next time, like everybody. But that there's
Yeah.
some like they win.
Or your idea gives me an idea. This is riffing. This is what this
We're doing it.
um, is. The jurors could decide this is, oh my God, you can't be playing this video. And another juror says, I'm going to sue this video. So they take the video to court and it's another OJ trial, but a VHS and screen are on trial and they are able to actually declare him guilty. And so there's actual justice for OJ because they find this videotape of him guilty in
Yeah.
court. But then you map it onto the actual OJ trial where there's a glove and a knife and all this other stuff. That might be a fun way to take it to absurdity.
Yes, I love that. Well, Scott, I know we wanted to get into some Q&A too. Anything else you want to
Yeah.
touch on with this one before we move to that third section?
No, there's more details about what we were thinking in the notes there that people will get as a bonus if they sign up to one of our two things.
Yeah.
And I think we've covered it pretty good. And again, thanks so much to our two sketch writers, Peter and Michael. Great work, you guys.
Yes, and thank you for again for offering these up. Well, it is time for section three, Q&A. We
Let's do
wanted
it.
to answer some of your questions, and I know Darcy's been monitoring the Q&A as well. And oh, I see Darcy's been answering some of these. Thank you, Darcy. Appreciate it. But if you have a question for us on anything we've covered here, or anything you'd like us to touch on in our final section here today, please drop it in that, not in chat, but in the Q&A box, and we'll take a look and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. So questions.
Here's some suggestions for, oh, they're going by fast, for online outlets to submit comedy writing pieces besides McSweeney's. Um, Anonymous, I created a document that lists all of the publications that pay for humor submissions. There's dozens of them. And I will, based on your question, I'm going to throw that in as one of the bonuses that I'll throw out there for everybody uh, who um, who buys our thing. There's a lot. There's a lot.
Seth says, hi, Seth. How important is starting with strong comic characters to y'all? That's interesting. I mean, for me, starting with them, not necessarily, but finding them through the riffing, brainstorming, shots on goal process that Scott and I have been talking about today, finding our way to them, then finding their comic flaws, their games, playing and heightening them eventually. Sure, but starting with them, no, not necessarily for me.
Yeah, people have different methods, and you can use any method you want. I like to mix it up to come up with sketch ideas and start sketches. You could start with a character, like Debbie Downer was probably a character they started with. The actors and writers communicate on SNL, and they go, "Hey, I got this character. Can you write something for it?" That's one way to start a sketch. You can also start with concept, like Mark says, then find characters once you start executing that concept. Are
Oh,
there
go ahead, Scott.
situations where using two or more devices work? That's a great question, James. When you say devices, do you mean tracks or games? Because I've only seen that once. There was a sketch on uh, Amy Schumer, Inside Amy Schumer show, where it was a parody of like a coach of a football team, and they had a whole take and a comedic game with the football team, and it was something about how the team was upset that they couldn't rape the girls in school with impunity anymore, or something like that. But then there was a second take that built up through the sketch, where Amy Schumer was the wife of the coach, and she drank, and her drinking container kept getting bigger. So by the end of the sketch, it was like enormous. Had nothing to do with, and that's literally the first and only time I've ever seen it. And again, you had top comedy people, Amy Schumer herself, Tig Notaro, Neil Brennan, ton of other great sketch writers. That's really bold. Like that's very advanced work. I would not recommend it for anybody. It's hard enough to follow one game and write one game in a scene. Um, that's like high level work. Um, like I don't know that I've ever even. Well, I guess Monty Python has played with it a little bit. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Mark? I would caution against it.
Yeah, and if we're talking about devices, I'm pairing James's question with Ira's question here too now as I see them
Cool.
both in a row. And Ira's saying, do you typically only use one of the nine devices on a sketch to mix or match them as long as it stays on track? If we're talking about devices in that sense, which James perhaps was, then I would say the ones that I was showing here today. Yes, absolutely. We see them combined all the time. You can have a mapping sketch that's also a fish out of water, that's also a center eccentrics. There could be an entrance and exit sketch that's also an inappropriate response sketch. So those devices can be put together, even though talking about devices in that sense combining, I would still have the caveat of what Scott just mentioned, on the it's a lot of plate spinning. It's a lot of plate spinning then, right? So it's like, yes, it can be done. We do see it, but you're adding layers of complexity at any time that you do. So you
And
just have to be aware of
it's already a
that.
really hard thing to do. That I appreciate that answer, Mark. You know, the term devices is new to me as of this webinar, so I missed that, and
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. That's what they're asking. So thank you for that. How do you recommend finding a community of writers around your city? Um, I have a lot of ideas about this because I came up in comedy in Ellsworth, Wisconsin, which is a town of 2,000 people where
Mm.
main hobby in town was drinking and driving. And so I found comedy people. I found a lot of great comedy people that are still my comedy cohorts today. um, you have to put feelers out. You know, you have to be watchful. You have to find people. You have to ask people, hey, you want to work on a comedy sketch with me, and try people out. They're out there. They're absolutely out there. There's probably a local, improv school. There's probably a local comedy club. And failing that in your, immediate physical area, there are so many groups online. I have a How to Write Funny Facebook group where there's, I think it's like 1,500, 2,000 people at this point. You can reach out to them, say, hey, where are you guys at? If you want somebody physically. Um, keep your ears open. Do you have any insight into how to find your peeps, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, a couple other things I'd throw out there is almost every, large to even mid-sized city now has some comedy theater presence, like where there's some sketch and improv place, so finding the one closest to you along with we have this great additional resource now that leveled up during a weird side effect of COVID, which is we're all on Zoom now and we're all online and being here and in stuff like what Scott's doing and stuff like what I'm doing at Sketch School, we're creating communities online where people are gathering from all over the globe to be able to connect
Yep.
and be resources for each other. And so
There's a
that's a
guy in my
cool thing.
writer's room who's in remote Alaska, and it's a tiny town, like
Mhm.
500 people, and they have a thriving comedy and showbiz community. They have a cabaret theater, and they do shows. It's really incredible. So yeah, look in your area.
Scott, I'm noticing we got three in a row here that are all like different versions of pretty much the same question. So maybe we can tackle them. Tim says, what do you consider to be the sweet spot when it comes to sketch length? I average 3 pages, but sometimes longer or shorter. Steve says, what's the perfect time length for a sketch?
Yeah.
And Marc Warzecha says, not me, but someone with it, says, do you use a different script format, digital versus live sketch? What do you think about sketch length, Scott? How do you approach it, look at it, teach it, etc.?
The way things are going in the culture, people's attention spans are literally shrinking because of social media, and it's been happening for the last 50 years. A one-page sketch is great. It's wonderful. I would never do a sketch more than 5 pages. I think that's an eternity in sketch comedy. There's exceptions to everything. If you're Amy Schumer and you have a show and you want a central sketch on the show, yeah, 5 to 8 minutes. That used to be kind of the limit. I kind of use 3 to 5 now. How about you,
I
Mark?
do too. I generally say 3 to 5 with the caveat of if you're writing for social, it's shorter,
Even shorter. Yeah,
right? It's even shorter.
totally.
But yeah,
And
same
yeah, in
way.
terms of difference between digital and um, uh, personal, like on stage, not really. Like always keep it short. Make it as short as it can be.
Yep. Uh,
Um,
there are some questions here about some of the devices. What is an example of simple and possible test? Not sure I understand mapping. Well, this gives me
yeah,
an
we both
opportunity to
mentioned.
plug my workshop again.
Do it. Yeah.
Because I'll be covering both of those and seven more in depth starting 1 week from today.
Yeah. And if you sign up to our lovely sponsors, one of our two lovely sponsors offers, you're going to get the complete How to Write Funny book series, which goes into great depth with many examples about mapping. It's a way to use the analogy funny filter where you take the tropes and assumptions of one thing and you map them onto another thing to make people think of the first thing. And it's an automatic comedy beat when you do that well. Um, I wanted to just quick question here from Chris. what if your sketch is starting from a point that is already absurd? How do you heighten to absurdity?
Mm.
Generally, you want some place to go. So, and you need to orient the audience. So I would recommend not starting with absurdity. You start a little absurd, but not too much that the audience is going to be like, hey, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the work that if you're starting in a super extreme heightened place, the work that our sketches always have to have a pattern that heightens, right? So you're putting yourself in a position then of, I've got to have at least two more beats of the game that go further than that.
Yeah.
So if you can find them, cool.
Yeah.
If not, maybe you go the other way and go, I'm building to this. Instead of starting with this moment, I'll build to this moment. Let me put a couple things in front of it that are not as heightened and I'll get there.
And, contrast is one of the most important things in comedy, which is why most of the good sketches always start very boring. A couple comes to dinner, the Portlandia sketch. They order chicken, and that gives them somewhere to go. That way you've got this incredible contrast between where we started and where we end. People like that.
People like that. Agreed.
Um, I'm a comic advertising copywriter, have only often only have 15 or 30 seconds to make viewers laugh and also get brand messaging across. I often rely on visual fish out of water premises or obvious parodies. Do you have any other devices or tricks for getting sketch-like comedy in quick when you don't have time to build a game or use rule of threes? Um, what do you think, Mark? Want to tackle that one
I mean,
first?
the first thing
Devices
that's
or-
occurring to me is the comedic concept of it's called in many circles a blackout. We see it a lot in social media comedy too because it's so short. But essentially, you have it's a sketch that plays like a joke. There's a setup and a reveal of something for a punchline, and the sketch ends. It's usually 30 seconds max, and that's good. That gets in that time frame.
Yeah, I would say check out follow some of the top performing sketch performers on TikTok. They're doing these sketches that are like, barely 15 seconds, and sometimes they have three joke beats in them. And you'll see just how fast audiences are now in understanding premises, settings, things that you can establish so quickly, and you can immediately get to the joke beats.
Yeah.
Want to
It's
pick another one here, Mark?
Yeah. How do you, anonymous attendee says, how do you combat ageism in comedy if you're trying to break in midlife? I mean, first of all, I understand the concern. I think we're in a very, very exciting time comedically in that a lot of the old school gates and gatekeepers are gone. I have the ability to pick up my phone. There's a movie studio on it, shoot my own things, edit it with this device in my hand, put it out online on social media, build a following, and make a living doing it. And people from all age groups, dynamics, are doing that. So I think it's a great equalizer in a lot of ways. You can get directly to your audience now, and if you're funny, and if you're doing stuff that's funny, or you've got something to say, you're touching on topics they care about, an audience can find you, and you can make money doing it.
Agreed. The only place I see ageism is in stand-up comedy clubs, where sometimes it's a group of 20 somethings doing the comedy, and if you're older than that, you'll get a little bit of the side eye, but don't the most ageism is what people inflict on themselves. Like, don't let that stop you. All the audience cares about is it funny? They literally don't care how old you are. They never did.
They want to laugh.
They just, yeah.
Any others in here? Scott jumping out at you that you'd love to tackle in our remaining time.
Um, yeah, please say something about misdirection in comedy if it's a thing. It's absolutely a thing. In my How to Write Funny books, I talk about the 11 funny filters, which in my scientific analysis are the 11 different ways to make something funny. And one of them is called misplaced focus, which is the same as or includes the idea of misdirection. And yeah, it's basically setting the audience up to expect one thing and giving them another. And it's not always funny, but it is part of the language of comedy. And if you have enough contrast between what they expect and what they get, and there's a great, funny comedic concept at the core of it, it's probably going to work. Uh, Exercise for generating ideas. Let's handle that one, Mark, from Mark Denny. There's the only exercise for generating ideas is to write ideas. You just have to sit down and write a bunch. Uh, if you want to use ChatGPT or whatever, you can. Most of those ideas will be terrible, but maybe they'll give you ideas. um, that's it. The morning pages exercise where you just free write and see what happens is a great way. Do you have any tips or tricks for that, Mark? Just how do you
What?
see the quantity over quality and just pull out ideas?
Yeah, it's terms of like along the lines of the riffing stuff that you were talking about today, Scott. Like I'm always a tool I always use is word association, word bank. Once I know,
Yep.
like generally what my sketch is going to be, if it's happening at a golf course, I will take the time to go, what's not, I'm not looking for jokes or gags. I'm just word associating. What's every single thing in the world? I'm word banking. It's every single thing in the world I think of when I think of a golf course. I think of tee. I think of greens. I think of mowing the lawns. I think of par three. And I just read a giant list. Every last thing I exhausted, every last thing I could think of. And then I find myself referring to that, looking for it, pulling things out of it and moving them into jokes and lines and funny. I I know a lot of writers write this way. And to your point about AI, Scott, um, AI can do that list really well for us right now. It does not it does not stir you creatively in the same way though. So
Right.
even though it can make it, that list ends up not being helpful because it's the exercise of getting your brain going that
Yeah.
stimulates thoughts and ideas for the sketch. So it's sort of fun how it works out that way, I guess.
One of my favorite ways to generate ideas is to just be mindful whenever I notice something in the universe, just walking around my day, that strikes me as a little off, a little weird, a little odd, a little funny. I make a note of it in my phone. I just do a little voice note. And at the end of the week, I got several of these things. And if I sit down to write and I play those, I will have forgotten most of them. And they're going to trigger something where it's like, oh, yeah, that is a funny concept. And there I've got an idea.
Yeah. If somebody says, I'm sorry if you answered. Oh, also Gary says, if you had to start your comedy career over, what advice would you give yourself? I mean, I feel like it's a great question. This is going to sound like just a shameless self-promotion for Scott and I here, but like, I really feel like, oh, I wish I would have known sooner that a lot of this stuff that I think I'm like inventing as I'm starting to write and do comedy has already been figured out, codified, written down, is in books, is in workshops, and I don't have to spend years and years figuring this out on my own. I can get a massive leg up and jump start and move forward quickly by jumping in classes, getting books, and learning the basics, the fundamentals that are already in place and waiting for me to figure out. And then I can filter my comic voice through that. That took me longer than it could have.
Um, Yeah, I'm gonna cheat with that question because when I started in comedy, there was no internet and there was no way you could get your comedy seen by people
Right.
unless you submitted a film to a film festival, put yourself on a stage, in your local area or wherever you went, um, submitting articles to magazines, newspapers. If I was starting over again, I would be prolific, not precious, about posting on social media because that is free media that you have the same level of access to every audience in the world that Disney has. And if you're not taking advantage of that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So if I were 18 again and didn't have anything, I'd be making 20 sketches a day, I'd be writing 30 articles a day, and I'd be posting them. I wouldn't be starting my own newspaper, which is what I had to do back in the 80s.
Yeah, and I just want to note, Scott, of how impressively prolific you are, and folks will see if they're not already subscribed to your Substack, they'll see when they do subscribe, you are consistently writing, producing, and putting your stuff out there.
I appreciate you saying that. And to your tip, it's not all gold. You know, I
Mm.
write every day and I put it out. I post every rough draft I'm working on. Um, and because I believe in that, I think it makes you a better writer. I think it helps you progress faster. So yeah, in line with what you were saying, like doesn't have to take you that long anymore. Like you can learn fast by just being as prolific as possible. And it is one of the hardest things to do. Most people aren't as prolific as they could or should be.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want to grab a couple more here?
Yeah, there's a question here. Do you get better at knowing if it will be funny to the audience, or is it always a bit of a guess? It's similar to the above question, too. Do you have examples of articles you wrote or sketches that took off beyond any expectation you had, and maybe when you felt you got the audience buying it, might have caught you off guard? I mean, what that reminds me of is when I was head writer director of Second City main stage, you're generating a zillion sketches. We're going to have a show ultimately that has 30 to 35 sketches in it, and we're creating hundreds, right, over this rehearsal process. And we'd be locked in, like it's like eight of us in a room. We're doing this 1,000 hours a week. We're doing eight preview shows a week and five improv sets a week, and it's nonstop and never leaves your brain. You're doing it constantly. You're doing it for a living. So in terms of like on stage, live in front of the audience, sketch comedy, we're in it. We're doing it. And even then, and these are some of the best folks in the world doing this. And even then, we would get most of the time we'd get it right. Most of the time in rehearsal, if it worked and we thought it worked, when we put it in front of the audience, it would work. But maybe 15% of the time, we were wrong. It killed for us, and we put it up for them, and it doesn't work. And about 15% of the time, it would go the other way. Like we'd think this is okay or pretty good, and we put it up in front of them, and it did better than we thought. We go, oh, none of us like this one that much, but they did. And I see that happen all the time, especially on social, and people are creating stuff on social where it's like, wow, I didn't think that one was going to blow up. I didn't know that was the one, and I thought this one was going to, and it didn't. Which maybe is partly algorithm stuff, but some of it's real world stuff too. Scott, what's
Oh,
jumping out at you?
it's a great question, and it's one of the central challenges of comedy. Comedy is a social enterprise. It requires people to like it in order to work. Now, you can write something that you think is funny and enjoy yourself. If you show it to other people and they don't think it's funny, then it's it's just for you, and that's fine. I think over time with experience, you do get a little better, but ultimately it requires that check-in with other people. If you're writing articles for The Onion, you're going to go to your writer's room and you're going to get the opinion of the other writers. If you're a stand-up comic, you're going to go on stage and test your material to see what works the best. There's always a check-in with other people. It's a rare writer who can sit alone in a room and churn stuff out and know this is going to be funny. It's that testing that you can do that makes you seem like you're always right. If you test with your writer's room, with external audiences, and workshop stuff, you can be reasonably assured it's going to work. I've been in the prose or production end of comedy for all of my career, and in the performance end for a much shorter time. And they both rely on that check in with other people because like I said, it's social. That's how you learn.
Right.
Uh, what do you want to do, Mark? One more, two more? What do you think?
I'll grab these two real quick. Key and Peele are my favorite comics and role models for how I wanted to sketch. Mark, can you share more about how when you worked with them? And Jordan, a little bit. No, Keegan, very well. Keegan and I were in Second City cast together for 2 years, all
Awesome.
day, every day. And as some of you may know, right, there are some comedians who are off stage completely different than their on stage personas. There are some comics who off stage are identical and then there's sort of a spectrum, some in between. Keegan's one of the off stage is exactly what you see. When you see him on a talk show, that's what he's like. When you see him on the on performing, that's what he's like. And I remember when he first was joining us at Second City, we said, can we cut off his coffee? There's a lot of energy here. We thought he was drinking 5 pots of coffee a day. He's like, nope, this is just how I am. You have energy, Keegan. What were your 2-hour workshops generally look like? Some lectures, examples, and Q&A, for example. Yes, it might. I mean, what Scott and I do is slightly different, from one another. Of course, in my workshop, like the one that's starting a week from today, we do it as a Zoom meeting. We can see each other. We can talk to each other. We do live exercises, lecture, Q&A, live video examples, combination of all of those things, and you can write sketches and send them in for group feedback as well. Scott, I know you have a bunch of different models that you do along these same lines.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that question. What is it? How do we do
This
our
is Yeah, this was what will your 2-hour workshops generally look like? Some lecture examples and Q&A, for example.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily do a 2 hour workshop. I
Yeah.
mean, except for this today, and I've done a couple of others like this. Um, but I do one-on-ones where we just focus on what you're working on. My courses are all like quick videos, maybe 10, 20 minutes per video. Um, and in the writers' room meeting, it's about a 2 hour meeting, and we're just reviewing everybody's work. They come in and they perform, or they bring a sketch or a piece of writing they're working on, and we give our comments. So we do a certain amount of time allotted for them to present, and then a similar amount of time for us to all express our opinion about it. Because as I said, I think that's one of the most important things in comedy is to get an opinion on your work in progress. I kind of wanted to grab this question here, and that is, what comedians, writers do each of you follow who are doing comedy on social media in a unique way? I'll do one, and then I'd love to hear yours, Mark. My latest obsession, I met him last weekend at this event in Canada, is Josh Johnson, who is on YouTube. He's a host on The Daily Show. He's also on
Yeah.
The Daily Show because he is doing comedy at a completely different level than anyone has ever done stand-up comedy. When I was coming up, George Carlin did a special every few years on HBO, and that was considered kind of, wow, he's prolific. He's doing a new hour of material every few years. And then you had Louis C.K. in the early 2000s doing an hour special, a new hour every year. And he would give up that hour after he did his special, and he would build a new one. And everybody was like, wow, that's amazing. Once a year. Josh Johnson does one every week, and he posts it on YouTube, and he can be incredibly relevant and current. And he's getting so good because he's doing an hour of new material every week. He's becoming a master comedian. He's a young guy. He can't be more than 30. Actually, I think he's about 35. But he's a guy to watch, and he's just an absolute master. Talk about being prolific, Mark. My God. He's not only doing his day job, which is writing and performing and hosting The Daily Show, he's producing and writing and performing an hour of new stand-up, and it's polished. It's not like he's up there riffing like, there's a couple of comedians who improv on stage, like Jeff Garlin. It doesn't feel like loose improv like that. It's prepared material. It's incredible. Someone you're watching?
Well, one thing I like about social media comedy is how niche it is, how niche a lot of it is.
Yeah.
And so I try to mess with my algorithm. Like, they're not going to show me, the algorithm's not going to show me, sketch comedians who are doing mom comedy or comedy about perimenopause. It's not going to show me, I'm not like an art aficionado. It's not going to show me people who are doing sketch comedy about being an art snob. The algorithm's not going to show me that. I try to mess with the algorithm, ask people for recommendations, what's coming up for you, and then follow stuff that's not the stuff that the algorithm is like, you're this demo, so we're only going to show you this thing. And it gives me a good variety of what everybody's doing out there. And that's super exciting and fun, and also a learning lesson because you can have a lot of success on social in hooking into a specific niche. People that go, yeah, well, I love cars and this person does. all sketch about cars. That's their whole brand. And I go to them for that. Scott, I want to make sure that we get this. This one's just for you. And I want to make sure to let you address it. Is there a book out there that's more specific for tips on how to write onion style headlines?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think of Onion headlines as just another format for a joke. And so all the principles that I lay out in my How to Write Funny book series are about how to write a joke. And there are many examples from Onion headlines because I think those are really compact jokes. And so that's the best guide I know of is my book, How to Write Funny. Um, Simple answer. Yeah, simple
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
And another shameless self promotional.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I know we've gone into overtime here today or over what we were aiming for, but I'm glad that we did because these are such terrific questions. It's been fun to kind of hang out in this
Yeah.
Q&A section and hopefully these are great takeaways and that we're giving you useful feedback on these questions. Thank you so much for them, everybody.
Yeah, so before we go, we should tell people how they can sign up for our offers. We're going to follow up with email as well, but I'm posting mine in the chat right here. That's my Substack. Do you have a
Yeah,
link you can?
I'm gonna do the same right now.
Oh, I
Pull
just
up this.
posted that to
Yeah.
only the hosts, which isn't going to help. But let's put our two links there. Um, Anyone who signs up to either Mark's or my offer today is going to spend $200 and get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of comedy value. You're going to save years of time. And, we talked about that journey, how long it takes to
Yeah.
get good at something. That's what I like to specialize in, is helping people do it fast. And I love when
Yeah.
people take my comedy course 8 weeks and then they come out and they get a full-time job writing comedy, which happens.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love that. So I'd love to see some of you in the inner circle. Mark, I hope you see a lot of these lovely folks from today in your workshop next week.
Thank you. We're starting 1 week from today. Would love to
That'll
have you
be
there.
fun. I'm excited about it. This was really fun, Mark. This was a delight.
It was a
And
delight to do this together, Scott. Thank you.
yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it. I see people are dropping off. There's a thing about the 2 hours. It's like, okay, I can't do more than nobody's gonna, it's like a movie longer than 2 hours. It's like, too long. Not
Too
gonna.
much.
So it's a good time to stop. And thanks for all the great questions, everybody. And thank you, Darcy, for being such a wonderful um, uh, I want to think of you as like our lifeguard in this, uh, being there to help manage things. That was wonderful.
Thanks all. We'll see you soon.
All right, take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.